Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to Michael's Thoughts, and this is the second video I've made on this channel. So if you haven't seen the first one, go ahead and check it out. So I read this book that we're going to be talking about. It's called White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky. It was written around 1850. It's a pretty short book, about probably like 50, I think it's 52 pages. So it's about 52 pages. It took me like an hour, hour and a half to read. It's really quick, so definitely read it if you get the chance. But to get started, it's about basically this guy who really likes this girl and he goes on like nighttime walks and he meets this girl and they get to talking and he really likes her, but she likes someone else and she basically uses him to try and get with the other guy. So it's a pretty unique story, I would say, especially for its time. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. The friend zone is something that everyone goes through at least once in their life. It's as old as time. Someone likes a person, but that person doesn't like them back in the way they want. They end up in what's called the friend zone, a place that is notorious, a place you never want to be, and is in stories that have been told for generations. The main protagonist that we follow in White Nights is an unnamed man. We never get his name during the story, but he goes by the Dreamer, and this is what he's referred to in the book. He's called the Dreamer because he spends his whole life waiting for something to happen. The Dreamer doesn't live in the present moment, and so time zooms by for him, and he never does anything remarkable. He's just constantly dreaming and dreaming of a life that he wants, but he never actually takes the actions to try and get there or appreciate the life that he's currently living in. The Dreamer is very lonely. He doesn't have friends and doesn't know anybody very well. He takes walks around his city of St. Petersburg and sees the same people on his walks and remembers them, but they never recognize him or give him a single thought. On one nighttime walk, he encounters a woman who is crying. As he goes up to her and asks, "What's wrong?" she walks away, not responding. The Dreamer gives up, not daring to follow after her. Then, he hears a scream and sees a man chasing the girl. The Dreamer runs over and hits the man with a walking stick and walks the girl home. On the walk home, he says he doesn't really ever talk to girls. He says, "Not one woman, never, never, no acquaintance of any sort, and I do nothing but dream every day that at last I shall meet someone. Oh, if only you knew how often I've been in love that way." They keep talking and she asks why he came up to her in the first place when she was crying. He just says he couldn't bear the crying and it made his heart ache. She says, "I'm glad I was not mistaken in you," and they arrive at her house. The Dreamer is worried they may never meet again, and asks if this will be the last time they see each other. She says they can meet tomorrow night at the same place he dropped her off at, and at the same time. The Dreamer says, "I'm a dreamer. I have so little real life that I look upon such moments as this now as so rare that I cannot help but going over such moments again in my dreams." The next night they meet and she asks him about his history and to learn more about him, and he says he doesn't have anything, any history. He's lived entirely alone his whole life. The girl then just tells the Dreamer about her history and her story. She talks about how her grandmother, who she lives with, is blind and very strict. She tied them together so she wouldn't leave her side. She sits and knits with her grandmother all day, talking to nobody, just like the Dreamer. She imagines a life she will never have and a reality that doesn't really exist. She reveals her name as Nastanka. The Dreamer then tells a long story about his life and why he's lonely. He says that he's like a turtle in a shell and has many sleepless nights. Nastanka then tells the Dreamer her story about living with her grandmother. She mentions how the home she lived in has an area for a lodger to live in, and when they got their new lodger, it was a young man. When grandmother asked if he was good looking, Nastanka replied that he was. The grandmother said he was a nuisance and Nastanka won't be the one looking after him. The man moved in and gave Nastanka some books, and when she finished those books he would give her some more and more to read. The man then asked if she would like to go with him to the theater, and that she must go without her grandmother knowing. Nastanka said she will never deceive her grandmother, and declined. When the man was talking with her grandmother, he mentioned how he had 3 tickets to a show, but his friends couldn't go with him, so he asked if Nastanka and her would like to go with him. The grandmother agreed as she liked the show he had tickets for, and they went. After the show, The man saw Nastenka less and less, and they would only see each other passing by on the stairs, just give an awkward nod, never really talking. She could tell the man just felt bad for her. Later on, the man said to the grandmother that his business in St. Petersburg was over and he has to go back to Moscow for a year. Devastated by this news, later that night Nastenka packed her clothes and went up to his room and opened the door. She started crying and sat on his bed. The man understood and said he was not rich and couldn't afford to marry her. He grabbed her hand and said he's going to Moscow for a year, and when he gets back, if she still loves him, he will have more money to be able to marry her. Back in the present day, Nastenka tells the dreamer it's been a year and he's supposed to live in St. Petersburg, but she hasn't heard from him. She started crying on the dreamer's shoulder, and he says he can help her if she writes a letter for him that he will deliver to the man. Nastenka already had a letter written and gives it to the dreamer, and says she's very happy to see him tomorrow and can't wait for the news he will bring about the man that she's going to marry. They meet on the third night. They meet, and Nastenka says, "Do you know why I'm so glad to look at you? Why do I like you so much today? I like you because you have not fallen in love with me." She says when her and the man get married, she will remain great friends with the dreamer. The dreamer was sad by this statement, but he didn't say anything. Suddenly, they heard footsteps, and the dreamer let go of her hands and made a movement to walk away. But it turned out not to be the man they were looking for. Nastenka asks why he let go of her hand and says, "We will meet him together. I want him to know how fond we are of each other." And then the dreamer had enough. He let all his emotions go, and the page says, "How fond we are of each other." I cried, "Oh, Nastenka, oh, Nastenka, I thought, how much you have told me in that saying. Such fondness at certain moments makes the heart cold and the soul heavy. Your hand is cold, mine burns like fire. How blind you are, Nastenka. Oh, how unbearable a happy person is sometimes. But I could not be angry with you. At last, my heart was too full." "Listen, Nastenka," I cried. "Do you know how it has been with me all day? Why, how? How? Tell me quickly. Why have you not said nothing all this time? To begin with, Nastenka, when I had carried out all your commissions, given the letter, gone to see your goof friends, then I went home and went to bed." "Is that all?" she said, interrupted, laughing. "Yes, almost all," I answered, restraining myself, for foolish tears were already starting down my eyes. I woke up an hour before our appointment, and yet, as it were, I had not been asleep. I don't know what happened to me. I came to tell you all about it, feeling as though time were standing still, feeling as though one sensation, one feeling must remain with me from that time. Forever, feeling as though all my life had come to a standstill for me. When I woke up, it seemed as though some musical motive had come back to me now. It seemed to me that I had been clamoring at my heart all my life, and only now. Nastenka didn't understand what he was talking about. She started laughing, and became very talkative. She grabbed his arm. The clock struck 11, and the man still did not show. The dreamer began comforting her, making up reasons why he might not have shown. The dreamer says he will go to the man's house as soon as it's light out to get his response to the letter. Nastenka says she was comparing the dreamer and the man she's going to marry, and says, "Why isn't he you? Why isn't he like you? He is not as good as you, though I love him more than you." The next night, the dreamer goes to Nastenka and says there's no letter and he should have met up with her by now. And since the man never came, her hope is shattered. She says she is done with the man and never wants to see him again, and that she hates him. The dreamer admits that he loves Nastenka and that he's been hiding it the whole time. They have a long walk in the night, laughing, and she says they will never talk about the man again. They start planning their future, Nastenka saying that she will move in with him by tomorrow and that they will get married. Suddenly, a young man walked by. It was the man. The man that Nastenka was going to marry. "Nastenka, it's you!" he cries out. Nastenka tore herself from the dreamer's arms and runs to the man. She then turns back and hugs the dreamer and kisses him on the cheek. Nastenka ran back to the man, grabbed his hand, and they walked off. The next morning, The dreamer got a letter while the raindrops fell outside. He opens it, and it's from Nastanka. She apologizes for everything, and says she still loves him, and says they will still be friends. The letter says that she's going to be marrying the man next week. The dreamer reads this letter over and over again, and 15 years later he is still just as alone. He sits in his house thinking about Nastanka and their short time together all those years ago. He wishes her the best, hoping the future is bright for her. And now the story ends with probably one of my favorite quotes from any book, at least any book I've read recently. And it goes as follows. My God, a whole moment of happiness? Is that too little for the whole of a man's life? The way this story gets the theme of love and not living in the moment and ties them together with some of the best dialogue is just amazing and culminates in one of the best short stories ever made, at least in my opinion, of course. Both Nastanka and the dreamer were pretty similar. They both were lonely and never had any real love. You could say even for that short period of time when they were together, it wasn't real love, as they were leaning on each other to combat the feeling of being alone. I feel like this really relates to society today. I mean, it seems like people get together just because of they're lonely or they need validation instead of truly loving each other. The way the dreamer is portrayed is something I feel I can relate to. He doesn't live in the current moment, which is something I feel like I struggle with sometimes. I feel like I'm always waiting for the next thing to happen instead of seeing what's around me and appreciating the little things. So I guess the lesson of the story is just, live more in the moment, get to know people better instead of just, starting to date them right away, whatever, just simple stuff, I guess. But I think the book really puts it in a nice way and puts a bow on it, I guess. But that's about it. I mean, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.